Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering another massive Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great games worth buying, so let's get into it. Now the first game on today's list is Sifu. And Sifu is a 3D action beat-em-up game with some light RPG elements. And you'll play as a nameless martial artist whose father was murdered, and you'll go on a quest to track down the murderers and stop them for revenge. And so combat in this game is that 3D action combat. Kind of almost feels like a fighting game meets beat 'em up, as there's an extensive combo structure involved as you're taking on enemies as well. There's also a variety of weapon types that you can find throughout the levels, in addition to the hand-to-hand combat you can unleash on enemies. The game also has a very unique mechanic where if you die, you actually age and get older depending on how many times you've died. So if you die a lot, your death counter will rise significantly, and then each time you die, you'll age by that many years. And so it's a really cool concept, and it's not necessarily all negative, where you'll get a lot stronger the more that you age. But again, the more that you die in a row, the more years you'll jump up at once, and it can lead to your ultimate death if you get too old within the game. And so it's a cool mechanic, and I like that aspect of it. On top of that, there's several other ways that you can power up your character, and so you'll be able to level yourself up through a skill tree, and there's also a wide variety of ways that you can permanently increase your character's stats as well. The gameplay is super fun, but definitely challenging, and I think if you're a fan of 3D action games and beat 'em ups, you'll enjoy this game as well. The next game on the list is Heaven Dust. And so Heaven Dust is a retro-inspired survival horror game, and you'll play as a survivor as they awaken in a zombie apocalypse, and they need to escape a great manner in order to survive. And so this game has a very heavy survival focus, where you're going to have to deal with very limited ammo and very limited supplies to heal yourself. And so you'll really need to balance knowing when to run from enemies or when to take them on head on. On top of that, there's a lot of puzzles within the game, and these can be incredibly challenging as well, and you'll need to solve them in order to progress throughout the game. It does also have some light RPG elements as well, where you can craft different ammo types, you can craft and combine different herbs together to heal yourself, and there's also a variety of power-ups that you can purchase for your weapons, making them stronger. This is definitely a lot of fun and adds some addicting elements to the game as well. The graphics are more of a retro PS1 feel to them, where you are having that bird's eye view, but it isn't the tank controls that you might be used to from classic Resident Evil games, so I think it's a little bit more accessible in that sense. The puzzles can definitely be challenging within this game, and that's something to be aware of, as that can be a little bit frustrating. And again, the survival elements are pretty intense, and so that can be challenging as well. But if you like classic survival horror games, and if you're a fan of early titles in the Resident Evil series, I definitely think you'll enjoy this game, and it's worth picking up. The next game is Panzer Paladin. And so Panzer Paladin is an action platformer similar to classic titles like Mega Man and Castlevania. And so you'll play as a rescue android and her mech suit as you try and take on a demon threat that's trying to destroy the world. And so you'll be able to choose from a variety of different levels, similar to the stage select from classic Mega Man titles, and you'll choose from a variety of demon bosses, and you'll need to fight your way through their stages filled with evil demons and eventually take on these demon bosses. And you'll face off against classic monsters such as Medusa, vampires, dragons, and much more. And so unlike the Mega Man series, where you'll steal an enemy's power, you'll actually acquire a variety of weapons that you'll find throughout the stages, as well as claiming them from bosses. And so these weapons have their own unique stats and playstyle, strengths and weaknesses. And you can even destroy these weapons for points that you can use to permanently upgrade your character. On top of that, it also has a cool mechanic where you can exit from your mech suit and traverse around the levels that way as well. And in some stages, your mech suit might get completely destroyed, and so you'll have to reach a further checkpoint in the level as just your main character without the mech suit. But in these scenarios, you take heavy damage and can easily die. And so it adds another level of intensity to the game. I definitely enjoyed my playthrough of this one, and if you like classic action platformers as I mentioned, like Mega Man or the Castlevania series, this game is definitely a must-play. The next game on today's list is River City Girls. Now, River City Girls is another entry in the long-running River City series, and this is one of my favorites in the series. And so this time around, you'll play as two young high school girls as they take on evil gangs that are taking over the city in attempts to rescue their kidnapped boyfriends. And so the story itself is a pretty over-the-top anime-like story. And so it's a lot of fun meeting all the interesting and quirky characters. But on top of that, it has some amazing action RPG elements combined with a beat 'em up as well. And so throughout the game, as you explore and defeat enemies, you'll earn gold, and you'll be able to spend this gold throughout the city in different shops. And shops will sell a variety of food items that not only will heal your character, but they'll also give you a permanent stat boost the first time you eat them. And so it's definitely addicting to try and collect all the food types and to max out your character's stats. On top of that, there's dojos scattered throughout the city where you can learn additional moves for your characters, unleashing epic combos and ultimate finishers. Also, as you defeat enemies, you'll level up your characters, becoming more powerful. The gameplay is super addicting and a ton of fun. It's awesome taking on the waves of enemies and challenging bosses. Plus, you can play the game in local co-op as well, which is a ton of fun. And once you beat it for the first time, you'll also unlock a couple of other playable characters, which adds even further to the replay value as they have a different play style than the original two characters. It's one of my favorite beat 'em ups on Nintendo Switch, and if you haven't played River City Girls, I definitely recommend it. The next game on the list is Double Dragon Gaiden. And so Double Dragon Gaiden is another entry in the long-running Double Dragon series and takes the classic beat 'em up action and combines it with some new roguelike elements this time around. And so it's mainly a 2D side-scrolling action beat 'em up, but there are some interesting platforming elements to the game as well. But the biggest standout is the roguelike elements that are added to the game as well. On top of that, you have several playable characters that you can play through in the game, plus a lot that you can unlock after the fact as well. And each one of these characters really had a different feel to them, having different standard moves, speeds, attack power, as well as ultimate finishers that are different for each character. Another unique concept to this game is that it has a crowd control type feature where if you defeat 3 or more enemies at once with your special KO ability, you'll unlock healing items that heal your character or grant you additional money if you're at full health. And so this is a really cool concept where you might be getting beaten back quite a bit, almost on the verge of death, but if you unleash some special combos and take out enough enemies at once, you can be back to full health in no time. On top of that, another cool aspect is those roguelike elements. And so what happens is that you have a variety of stages to choose from, almost like a stage select screen in classic titles like Mega Man, where you'll take on your choice of a variety of different gangs. And as you enter their stage and defeat the level, each progressive level gets a little bit harder and more challenging and more expansive. On top of that, after each level, you'll be able to spend your gold on power-ups for your characters or continues later on in the game if you happen to die. Or if you decide to quit at some point in your run, you can actually take those coins and use them to unlock secrets throughout the main menu. Again, these can be things like extra characters, new soundtracks, and much more. It also features local co-op, so if you want to play through this game with a friend, that's definitely an option as well. And if you like classic beat 'em ups with a roguelike twist, I would definitely recommend this game as well. The next game on the list is Army of Ruin. And so this game is a bullet hell survival game, very similar to Vampire Survivors. And so this game is highly addictive, and basically how it works is you'll have your character in the middle of the screen, and enemies will slowly run into you over time, and over time the enemies get more and more intense, and more enemies will be coming on screen. And so in order to survive this onslaught, you'll have some weapons to choose from and different character types to play as. And over time, you'll be able to gather new weapons and also collect different items that can power up your weapons and character as well. On top of that, as you gather gems from defeating enemies, you'll level up your character and you can upgrade these weapons and items, making them more powerful still. And so it creates a really addicting gameplay loop. On top of that, there's some roguelike elements, so when you are defeated, you've collected gold throughout your run, and you can then use that to permanently upgrade your characters, allowing you to progress even further in your future runs. And again, these power-ups can range from a wide variety of things, like boosting your speed, increasing your attack damage, improving your health regeneration, and much more. The graphics of this game are also a little bit more polished compared to Vampire Survivors, which had that pixel art style. This time it's more that 3D art style, but it does feature very similar, incredibly addicting and fun gameplay. So again, if you like this style of survival bullet hell games, this one's definitely worth checking out as well. The next game on today's list is Blasphemous 2. And so this game is an intense action platforming Metroidvania game that has some Dark Souls-like elements as well, where it has a very dark and gothic aesthetic, as well as very challenging gameplay. And so it does take place right after the original, but I don't think you necessarily need to play the original to appreciate and experience this game. And at the start, you'll choose from a variety of different weapon types, and each one of these will give you a unique play style for your character. On top of that, you'll have a skill tree that you can build out and improve over the game, as well as a bunch of different items you'll find throughout the game that power up your character as well. On top of that, it has a very similar challenge level to the original, where you're really going to need to understand and master the enemy's patterns if you hope to defeat enemy bosses and even monsters along the way. The great news is though, is that the controls are incredibly responsive. On top of that, as I mentioned, it is a Metroidvania style game, so throughout the game you'll be acquiring new abilities and powers to progress further throughout the world, and that's a lot of fun to explore and unlock the many secrets hidden within the world. Overall, if you're looking for another new solid Metroidvania game, Blasphemous 2 is definitely worth picking up. The next game on today's list is Summum Aeterna. And so this game is a 2D action platforming roguelike Metroidvania, and it's actually a prequel to the game Aeterna Noctis. And you'll be taking on the role of the King of Darkness in this game as he's trying to maintain power and control the world. Now again, I don't think you need to have played the first game, which this is a prequel to fully understand and enjoy this game, but certainly you'll get a bit more out of the story if you have played the first one. Outside of that though, this game is a little bit different in the sense that it has a lot more roguelike elements compared to the original. And so when you start off your run, you'll choose from a seed, and this is basically going to give you different power-ups for your characters based on the one you choose, but also give you some negative debuffs for your character as well. On top of that, this can help determine where you start your run for the game as well. And so again, it has that similar gameplay loop to a lot of roguelike Metroidvania games, where you'll be progressing throughout the game, defeating enemies, gaining gold, and occasionally you're going to find shops scattered throughout the world. And in this process, you'll be able to find new weapons to upgrade and power up your character in hopes of making it further, defeating the bosses within the game, and completing your run. And so there's a variety of weapon types to choose from, so you'll be able to use things like swords and scythes and guns, each one having their own unique play style. And so depending on what you choose can really alter how you progress through the game, and eventually you'll decide which playstyle you really enjoy, and you'll probably focus on those weapon types more so than others. The game also has an extensive upgrade system where you can use gems to upgrade weapons, increase your stats, improve your skills, and much more. And so if you're looking for a new addictive roguelike Metroidvania, this one's worth checking out as well. The next game on today's list is Strikey Sisters. And so this is a very unique brick breaker style puzzle game that's similar to classic games like Arkanoid, but with a unique twist. And so in this game, you actually play as two sisters that are on a quest to rescue their lost pet. And so it combines some simple brick breaking mechanics with some challenging action combat as well. So you'll have your standard movement where you can hit the ball back and forth across the screen, but there'll also be monsters lurking around, and you'll be able to attack them with sword attacks, magic spells, and much more. On top of that, the game has 2-player local co-op, which is really cool, so you can take this game on with a friend. There's also a wide variety of action types and spells that you find, and this really takes the standard gameplay of a brick-breaking game to a whole new level. It has challenging boss fights, lots of achievements to unlock as you progress throughout the game, and a quirky, fun adventure. And so if you like puzzle games with a twist, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. Alright, the final game on today's list is Steel Assault. And so Steel Assault is a 2D action platformer that's heavily inspired by retro classics that's kind of like a combination of Castlevania and Bionic Commando. And so in this game, you play as a soldier that's leading a resistance against an evil dictator and his army in a post-apocalyptic future. And so as you play through the game, you'll defeat enemies with a powerful electric whip, as well as a cool zipline mechanic to help you traverse around the stage. And so the platforming is very challenging throughout the game, and it's not just standard 2D side-scrolling as well. There's a variety of other challenging types of elements thrown into the mix to keep you on your toes. Again, as I mentioned, you have a lot of options to dodge enemies and master the controls. So you have the zip lining, double jumps, your standard attacks, and much more. There's different upgrades you can find for your character as well as you progress throughout the game. But if you like action platformers and retro classics like the Castlevania series, I think you'll enjoy this one as well. But again, that wraps up our list of this latest Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great games worth buying. Let us know in the comments below if you've played any of these games before, if you're going to pick any of them up now that you know that they're on sale. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you'd like to help us support our channel, pick out content, and much more, consider becoming a patron of ours over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And another really cool way that you can help support the channel is that we actually partnered with a game store, Nutmeg Games. And so if you head to nutmeggames.com/nerdproblemsgaming or use our promo code nerdproblemsgaming at checkout, you'll actually get 10% off your order and help support our channel at the same time. So if you like things like board games, Pokemon cards, Magic cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and more, definitely head to nutmeggames.com/nerdproblemsgaming or use our promo code nerdproblemsgaming at checkout and get 10% off your order and help support the channel at the same time. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out and to make sure you don't miss out on any future sale videos so you can take advantage of these great deals. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you more soon.